Thinking she was safe behind locked doors, a young woman tried to escape the monsters in her head. What she didn't know was that the monster wasn't outside, it was her. It's 1966, and a violent storm pounds against the windows of the North Bend Psychiatric Hospital. The corridors are long, empty, and dimly lit, the sound of footsteps echoing from somewhere unseen. A trembling girl named Tammy hides inside her room, her eyes fixed on the door as something moves in the shadows outside. The handle begins to shake, and before she can scream, a twisted, half-rotten figure bursts through, grabs her throat, and ends her life without a sound. By morning, Tammy is gone, and her room is waiting for someone new. Elsewhere, a young woman named Kristen runs through the woods like she's being hunted. Her clothes are torn, her face bruised, her breath short and desperate. Behind her, the faint wail of sirens grows louder. She stumbles upon an abandoned farmhouse, its walls blackened with age. Without hesitation, she lights a match and tosses it into the dry wood. The flames rise fast, devouring the structure as she stares, unflinching, as if trying to burn something out of her own memory. When the police arrive, she doesn't resist. They put her in cuffs and drive her away, not to jail, but to a place much worse. At the psychiatric hospital, Kristen is processed and brought into a locked ward by a nurse with an indifferent face and a key ring that jingles like chains. The nurse removes a metal tag from a door labeled Tammy and replaces it with a new one, Kristen. Inside, the walls are pale, the bed is narrow, and the sound of crying echoes faintly through the vents. This will be her room now. As the nurse turns the key and leaves, Kristen lies down, her eyes heavy but restless. Somewhere between sleep and memory, she sees flashes a small girl chained in darkness, a man's footsteps above her, the smell of damp wood and fear. The vision fades before she can grasp it. When she wakes, her blanket is gone. She looks down and sees it sliding beneath the bed, as if something is pulling it away. Morning comes too soon. Dr. Gerald Stringer, calm but calculating, enters her room with Nurse Lund. He speaks gently, asking her about the fire, about what she remembers. But Kristen insists she doesn't remember anything. When she sees a camera behind the mirrored wall, she realizes every moment here is being watched. She refuses her medication, pretending to swallow it before crushing the pills under her heel. The other patients stare as she walks through the ward, each one strange in their own way. There's Iris, quiet and artistic. Sarah, sharp-tongued and cruel. Emily, unpredictable and loud. And Zoe, the youngest, living in a world of her own. They whisper about Kristen, wondering if she's here to save. But when she tries to ask questions, all she gets are nervous glances and unfinished sentences. Later that night, she tries to escape. She's stolen a small metal tool from Dr. Stringer's desk and uses it to pick the lock on her door. She runs through the hall toward the exit, heart racing, feet slapping the tile, but before she can reach freedom, an orderly tackles her to the ground. She screams, fights, and claws, but it's useless. They drag her back, lock her in again, and the silence returns. That's when she hears the slow, deliberate footsteps outside her door. She looks through the small glass window, and on the other side, staring back, is the rotting face of the girl who killed Tammy. The next day, the storm has passed, but the air inside the ward feels even heavier. Kristen joins the other girls in the common room, where Iris sketches quietly near the window, while Emily flirts with the orderlies just to get attention. Sarah lounges in the corner, her smirk hiding something cruel, and Zoe plays with her doll, whispering secrets only she can hear. When Kristen asks about the strange couple watching them from Dr. Stringer's office, Iris glances up and says they're the sad people, but nothing more. Kristen senses that everyone here knows something she doesn't, something they're too afraid to say. Later, while taking a shower, Kristen feels a sudden chill. The lights flicker, the pipes groan. Then, in the steamy mirror, a reflection moves that isn't hers. Before she can turn, a decomposed hand grips her shoulder, slamming her into the tiles. She screams, thrashing wildly, until the nurse bursts in and finds her shaking, alone on the floor. The nurse doesn't believe a word she says. Within minutes, they strap her to a table for electroshock therapy, cold metal against her temples, rubber between her teeth, and blinding white light as electricity floods her body. When it's over, her body lies still, her eyes staring blankly at the ceiling. When she finally wakes, the others avoid her. Even Emily, usually defiant, won't look her in the eye. Dr. Stringer gathers them all for a group session, trying to coax them into conversation. Someone mentions a name Tammy, but the doctor shuts it down immediately. He insists they focus on progress, not the past. Kristen feels the tension rise, the unspoken fear that something awful happened to that missing girl. Iris, meanwhile, is promised one last session with Dr. Stringer, believing she's finally cured. The doctor praises her sketches and calm demeanor, but when he finds a drawing of a dark, faceless figure among her work, his expression changes. Moments later, he begins hypnosis, the rhythmic tick of his metronome echoing through the room. As Iris drifts into a trance, something stirs behind her eyes, and when she wakes, she's no longer in his office. She's strapped to a wheelchair, rolling down a dark corridor she doesn't recognize. The wheels stop. She looks up and screams as the ghost drives a sharp object through her eye. Back in the ward, Kristen waits. Hours pass, and Iris never returns. She asks the nurse what happened, but is met with silence. When she presses the other girls, they look away. Desperate for answers, Kristen sneaks into Iris's room and finds a sketchbook left behind. Inside are drawings of every girl in the ward and one of a disfigured woman labeled Alice Hudson. Kristen freezes. That's the same name spelled out by the broken beads she found her first night here. Slowly, the truth begins to take shape. She storms into Dr. Stringer's office, demanding answers. But he only tells her that she must find them herself. His calm voice hides something, and for the first time, she wonders if the real danger isn't the ghost, but the people running this place. That night, she confronts Emily, who finally admits what she knows. Alice wasn't just another patient. She lived here before any of them. Something happened to her, something bad, but the details are buried in guilt and fear. Kristen insists that they have to escape before the same thing happens to them. Emily reluctantly agrees. Together, they sneak into the hallway, moving like shadows through the sleeping ward. Their footsteps echo softly until a faint metallic clang breaks the silence. They freeze. Somewhere in the distance, a door creaks open. They follow the sound to the morgue. It's cold air thick with the smell of chemicals. As Kristen searches the room, a loud crash comes from one of the body drawers. She opens it slowly, and a rotting hand bursts out, grabbing her wrist. She screams and runs, slamming through the stairwell door as alarms start to blare. She barely reaches the main exit before Alice appears again, pale skin, hollow eyes, moving with impossible speed. Kristen falls backward, her head hitting the floor, and everything fades to black. When she wakes, she's back at her room, her body aching and bruised. No one speaks about her escape attempt. The nurses act as if nothing happened. But when Sarah suddenly disappears after her final session with Dr. Stringer, Kristen realizes the pattern. Every girl who meets the doctor alone never comes back. And whatever Alice's ghost, memory, or madness, it's closing in fast. Somewhere deep in the hospital, alarms start to wail, lights strobe, and the sound of screaming echoes faintly through the vents. When order finally returns, only 3 patients remain: Kristen, Emily, and Zoe. The youngest sits on the floor, clutching her doll, whispering the name Alice over and over until Kristen kneels beside her and demands to know who that is. Zoe trembles and finally tells her everything. Alice used to be one of them, cruel, manipulative, and violent. The girls couldn't take it anymore, so one night, they ended her life together and swore never to speak of it again. But Alice didn't stay dead. She came back, and now she's hunting every one of them for revenge. Kristen listens in disbelief, realizing she's trapped not only with the living, but with the ghost of their guilt. Moments later, Emily breaks down. Convinced she's next, she runs for the stairwell, screaming that Alice is coming. Kristen tries to stop her, but it's too late. The lights flash, and the ghost's shadow rises from the wall. Emily freezes, unable to scream, as the apparition lunges. Her cry echoes down the corridor before it cuts to silence. When the others find her body, she's gone, leaving only blood on the tiles and the smell of burnt ozone in the air. That night, Zoe collapses into Kristen's arms, sobbing that they should have never hurt Alice. For the first time, Kristen believes her. With nowhere left to turn, Kristen decides to fight her way out. She grabs Zoe and holds her like a hostage, threatening to harm her if anyone stands in their way. The orderlies hesitate, allowing her to reach the elevator. But as the doors close, Dr. Stringer appears, calm and unhurried. He orders the nurse to sedate her. The needle sinks into her arm, and the world fades to gray. When she wakes, she's bound in a straitjacket, her arms crushed against her chest, the room dimly lit by moonlight through barred windows. But Kristen isn't done yet. Using the metal shard hidden in her sleeve, she frees herself, knocks the nurse unconscious, and slips into the hallway. Her bare feet slap against the linoleum as she drags Zoe toward the exit. They run through corridors lined with shadows, chased by orderlies, and something else, something unseen that rattles doors and groans through the vents. At the service elevator, Kristen helps Zoe climb inside first, whispering that she'll follow. The lift rises halfway before it halts with a violent jolt. Zoe looks up and screams. The ghost is already inside. The door slams shut, trapping her inside with. The elevator shakes violently, then stops. When it reopens, Zoe is gone. Only her blood remains, dripping slowly onto the floor. Kristen follows the trail into the upper floors, where the air grows colder, the lights flickering erratic. Every door she passes bears a name. She knows: Iris, Emily, Sarah, each one crossed out. The last door is hers. She pushes it open and steps inside Dr. Stringer's office. On the desk lies a thick file marked Alice Hudson. Inside are photographs, medical notes, and drawings of every girl she's met, each name listed beside the same patient number. Kristen reads it again and then sees her own name at the top. Dr. Stringer enters quietly, his face pale under the fluorescent light. He tells her it's time to remember who she really is. Kristen stares at him, her breath trembling, the papers shaking in her hands. Dr. Stringer steps closer, speaking slowly, like a man trying not to frighten a wounded animal. He tells her that Kristen never existed, not the way she believes. Her real name is Alice Hudson, and this hospital isn't her prison, it's where she's been treated for years. The images of other girls, Iris, Sarah, Emily, Zoe, weren't people she met in the world. They were fragments of herself, splintered pieces of a mind that once broke to survive. The truth crashes down like thunder. 8 years earlier, Alice was abducted from her home and kept chained in the basement of that same farmhouse she later burned to the ground. The abuse and isolation shattered her sanity, and to escape the unbearable memories, her mind created others, each personality taking a piece of her pain. Zoe was innocence, Emily was rebellion, Iris was compassion, Sarah was control, and Kristen was the protector, born from the fire to keep Alice safe from reliving the horror. But when Dr. Stringer's treatments started working, the real Alice began to reemerge. One by one, the personalities were being destroyed, and Kristen was fighting to survive, never realizing that she was fighting herself. As the memories flood back, Kristen sees flashes. The basement, the chains, the bruised wrists, the sound of a man's footsteps above her. Every scream she ever buried comes rushing out, twisting her face in silent agony. Dr. Stringer approaches gently, telling her that Alice isn't gone, she's simply waking up. But before he can reach her, the ghost returns. The air grows cold, the lights flicker, and from behind the doctor's desk, the decayed version of Alice emerges, shrieking with rage. Kristen screams as the specter lunges, and together they crash through the office window. Outside, the storm is finally broken. The two figures fall through the air in slow motion, Alice, and the last piece of her fractured mind colliding with the earth below. When the world steadies again, only one remains. Later, in the quiet of morning, Alice sits calmly on her hospital bed, sunlight warming her face. Her hair is brushed, her expression clear, her eyes no longer darting with fear. The same couple who once watched her from behind the glass now stand in the doorway. They are her parents, older, broken, but relieved. Dr. Stringer tells them she's stable, that the personalities have faded, and for the first time, Alice knows who she is. As she gathers her belongings, she pauses at her mirror, staring at her reflection like she's seeing herself for the first time. For a moment, peace settles in. Then she opens the cabinet above the sink. A sudden hand shoots out from the darkness, pale, filthy, familiar, and drags her backward with a scream.